This EGME-331 Solid Mechanics Prerequisite video series. In this video, we'll be reviewing the topic of material failure. What's material failure? A failure is a breakdown of an object such as a metal, a polymer, or a composite material or ceramics due to various factors that affect the strength, the stability, and the chemical composition of the material's structure or the object's structure. The reason for the material failure includes several. They are corrosion, erosion, there will be fatigue, there could be stress corrosion, cavitation, there could be fretting, or damage due to a foreign object. Failure could be classified in multiple ways. So, a common practice is to consider the failure point. So, if you consider the ultimate tensile strength as the failure point on the stress strain curve, then we call this as actual fracture. That means the material has undergone fracture and it's a permanent damage. Most importantly, it's a catastrophic damage or it's a complete failure. Alternatively, failure may be also considered as a deformation. That means it's no longer original, but it has not completely failed. The object or the material is still functional. However, it has undergone permanent deformation. In this case, we consider the yield point or the yield stress as a failure criteria, which means that there may be a slight dysfunctionality. However, it's not complete failure or total failure when we consider the yield point as a failure criteria. Another way failure can be looked at is the fracture itself. So we talked about the fracture based failure. Here there could be two categories. One will be the brittle failure, and the other one would be the ductile failure. So brittle failure refers to breakage of a material due to a sudden fracture. That means it doesn't give any warning, there is a sudden fracture, and when the brittle failure occurs, the material breaks suddenly instead of deforming slowly or straining under a load. The fracturing or breaking in brittle fracture can occur with only a very small amount of load or even an impact force, or we can consider as a mechanical shock. On the other hand, ductile failure is a type of failure that are commonly seen in malleable materials such as metals, characterized by extensive plastic deformation or even necking. So ductile failure usually occurs prior to the actual failure of the material, and in ductile failure there is absorption of massive amounts of energy and slow propagation before the actual fracture occurs. That means this is a time consuming failure, and among the two failures, the brittle and the ductile, in engineering it's always preferred that we want to see more ductile failure than brittle failure.